My name is Christina Krost. I'm the program officer at the Lumpkin Family Foundation. I live in Mattoon, Illinois. And I'm pleased to see you all today to get some more information about Land Health Community. So this is just an information session on this program. And we'll talk about dates and all of the different things that we try to accomplish through this program here real soon. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can come off mute and ask them as you need to, but we'll also have time at the end that you can ask questions as well. Kind of just an informal situation here, so let's all just get to know each other a little bit through our presentation. All right, I don't see anyone else in the waiting room, so why don't we get started? So again, I'm Christina Krost. I'm the program officer. Some of you may have had a chance to meet our new executive director, Heidi Dusick. She's here in the Coles County area now. Bruce retired at the end of last year, and we wish him well, but Heidi is here in town and is eager to meet folks. So if you haven't had a chance to meet Heidi yet, you might at a community event or something like that coming forward. And then Lindy Wheatley, again, is our grants and operations manager. She's who you want to talk to if you have a technical question about Foundant, getting logged into that system, doing any reporting for us. That's who you want to talk to there. You can email me. I'm just going to email her. So if you have a direct question about Foundant, cut out the middleman and you can email Lindy directly, lindy@lumpkinfoundation.org. All of our email addresses are on our webpage as well. You can always find a way to get a hold of us. So here's what we're going to talk about today: the mission and vision of the Land Health Community Program, an overview of that program, some details that you might want to include in your proposal to make sure you're on target, the different kinds of funding that we do, what that application process looks like, and then Q&A at the end. Oops, and I see somebody in the waiting room. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. At the Lumpkin Family Foundation, we have some core values, and those are, again, on our website. You can find them already, but we care very much about working to improve the lives of people in East Central Illinois. So this is the part where I'm going to talk about how this grant program is specific to East Central Illinois. So the Land Health Community Program is for people in and around the East Central Illinois area, which I will show exactly what we mean by that on a slide on the next page. But if your organization is located in Chicago and is Chicago-based and doing work in Chicago, we do that too, but not within this program. So if you have questions about our Chicago programming, we can cover those at another time with another presentation later on this year. We'd love to have you, and we always love people learning about what we do, but this is specific to East Central Illinois today. All right. So again, we have a couple different regions that we operate in and a couple of different programs that we work with. The Good Food Policy Program is a national program that deals in food systems. The East Central Illinois grant region focuses on this program, Land Health Community, as well as our Nature-Based Climate Action Program. And then within our Chicago programs and our East Central Illinois programs, we have what's called our Wellness Grant Program, which helps to focus on some of the needs that organizations have that they can't always get grant funding for: the mental wellness and well-being of the individuals that work in their organizations and the capacity there. So that's something available to both our Chicago programs and our East Central Illinois programs. But again, this presentation is going to focus on the East Central Illinois, just the Land Health Community Project today. We'll do one of these for the Nature-Based Climate Action Program a little bit later in the year. And then there'll be one for the Wellness Grant Program kind of closer toward this summer as well. All right. So the mission and vision of the Land Health Community Program is really focused around healthy and sustainable communities, again, specific to the East Central Illinois community. So we are looking for holistic, healthy, and connected rural communities and, organizations that work to build that. We look for strong and local, food systems, agricultural economy that's robust, resilient businesses, talented workforce, We want our residents to be mentally well and physically fit. And sometimes those things go hand in hand. When you have access to the outdoors, your mental well-being improves. And then engaged in collaborative leadership. Again, we want to help resource the leaders that are doing this great work in our communities. And, we can do it with protected natural beauty around us. We have a number of parks and things like that in this community that we, are able to access, which again, helps to improve the mental and physical aspects of our community. So that is, in a nutshell, what we are trying to do with the Land, Health, and Community program. And so this is what we define when I say East Central Illinois. If you ask 10 people what East Central Illinois is, you might get a different answer from each of us. This is our actual map, though. So if your organization or the programs that you're trying to do exist mostly within this marker here, this kind of green like box area, I guess, that is what we're defining as East Central Illinois. If you're a little bit close on some of the, edges here, please don't hesitate to reach out or talk to me, or we can have a conversation about that. But if you're majorly outside this territory, that's not what this program funds. And so this territory right here, again, reflects the Illinois Consolidated Telephone Company's original footprint, which is where the Lumpkin Family Foundation's wealth came out of, and why the family is so committed to this region. So again, we do have programming in Chicago. This presentation will not cover that. Okay. So here are some of the things we are looking for in proposals in the Land, Health, and Community program. We're looking for, and you can all read these, but healthy and affordable food is important to us, and having that accessible in our community is important to us. Mental wellness through engagement with, the outdoor world, with the natural environment is really important to us. So when there are overlaps between even like, community gardening and getting people out and mental wellness, all of those kinds of things, are really great projects that we're interested in. Projects that help to grow the local agricultural economy or help, the region food system and sustaining, new viable businesses is of interest to us. And we do some of that work in some of our other grant programs too. But, we're particularly interested in it in the East Central Illinois area. Developing green practices that add value, protecting land for future generations, and that kind of conservation work is part of what we're interested in. And then encouraging community engagement and collaboration, maybe around a particular policy or program, and then research around agriculture and rural development. Again, things that are that will bring healthy and sustainable communities or create healthy and sustainable communities to East Central Illinois is really important to us. This is all on our website too, by the way. So you don't need a copy of these slides. This isn't super secret information. This is all, public and available for you to find on our website. So do check that out as you're, doing your proposals. Another really great place to find information, if you're kind of unsure of, gee, how much does the Lumpkin Family Foundation award for work like this? You can find all of that information on our grantee database. You can search and filter by the different grant programs that we have. You can filter by county, by the region of East Central Illinois, and that will pop up in the last few years. That will pop up who has received grant funds from us in the past few years. In a nutshell, a quick summary, what the grant was and how many dollars they received. So do check out our grantee database. It'll be a wealth of information for you as you're trying to discern, what exactly does a strong proposal look like. You can see some examples on the grantee database. Now, we have a couple different kinds of funding that we do at the foundation. And so let me kind of take a minute to explain the differences here. So we have, and you might see if you're mining, the grantee database, you might see a designation of like core grantee versus, a program or a project grantee. Our core grantees are the grantees that we have been working with for 3 years or more, and sometimes a lot more, that we have built a relationship over time. We trust the work that they're doing. We know that they're authentically here in the East Central Illinois region. They're a pillar of the work that we believe in here in East Central Illinois. And so those core grantees with whom we've had a relationship for 3 years or longer can be eligible to receive multi-year general operating support rather than just programmatic support. And that's a conversation that I will often invite some of our grantees that are kind of in that 3-year, cycle, or, sometimes that conversation is a two-way street. But, and so core grantees, again, are the ones that we've had a deep relationship with over time. They complete a post-grant report, at the yearly, and we check in, regularly, I'd say, because again, we care about that relationship. We care about the work that they're doing. So you may see some of our grantees get general operating core support, the ones that are, we have a deep relationship with. Others are really just program or project focused. There's a park that's trying to be built, or they're trying to do a very specific thing on a very specific timeline in this very specific place. That's not necessarily a core grantee situation. So that would be one of our program or project grants. It's for a specific time period in a specific place, and they would receive just their funds for that particular project, and then they would report out to us about a year from when they received their funds on how that went. Sometimes that leads to longer term relationships, but typically, program kind of stuff is more short term than the core grantee relationship. So those are the examples of the different kinds of funding that we do here at the foundation. So I'll move into what this process actually looks like, and how much work that will be for you and what you need to put into it in the next few weeks. So the first thing you'll need to do, and some of you may have already done this, again, if you've already had a relationship with the Lumpkin Family Foundation, you already have worked with Foundant. We do everything through Foundant. So you'll submit all of your LOIs, which is your letter of inquiry, your application, if it's invited, a post-grant report, all of that will go through Foundant. So if you already have an account, you'll use that account to get going for this cycle. If perhaps your organization has an account, but maybe the person who did it last year has left that position, you're going to want to email lindy@lumpkinfoundation.org to get yourself, a new login for that account. And so she can help walk you through that on our end here. And it's very simple, but you will need to reach out to her first. Because if there's already an existing account, we'll need to add another account or another, account holder onto it. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do. If you've not worked with Foundant before, when you go to our Apply Here button on the website, there's a number of different videos and things like that, where if you're not familiar with Foundant, it can get you kind of up to speed quickly if you have questions. And again, the technical questions with Foundant are going to go to Lindy. So the first step after you've set up your account is that you're going to go to the letter of inquiry stage, which is just a really short pitch where you give me literally a paragraph or two about the project you're trying to do, maybe the time frame that you're trying to do it in, how it fits in with your mission, how it fits in with our mission, where that overlap is, and then, what you're hoping to do. Again, it's pretty short. It only asks for a little bit of contact information. It's a pretty light lift for us to say, I would like to know more, or, hey, this isn't a good fit. So if it isn't a good fit, we will meet sometime in March to decide who's a good fit and maybe who's not such a good fit. If it's a good fit, we'll invite an application. That'll be a more detailed part of the process here, where you're going to give us a little bit more information about what you're trying to do, what are your goals, what's the budget you have for it, how much do you need, how long do you think it'll take, what partners are you working with, that kind of thing. So that is the application. And again, that you'll have about a month to complete the application from when it's invited in March to when we start to make our decisions. So the application should take about a month. And then after the applications have been received, we leave ourselves a little bit of time between when we receive applications and when we start to make decisions to maybe do some site visits. In years past, we've done a lot of site visits at the very beginning of our grant cycles, especially if it's a new relationship with an organization that we're not like familiar with, or we're getting to know for the first time. But we're learning that maybe that's not always the best place for us to come in and do a site visit. So a site visit could be a virtual Zoom with your organization, a few key people from your organization, and maybe a few people from our organization, including the committee members that make decisions about these grants. So it could be just a Zoom call. It could be like if we're somewhere nearby here local and there's something for us to come and like physically see, like a project you're trying to do, we might come out in person and take a look at the project. But we're also realizing again, sometimes the very beginning of this process is not the time to come out and see anything. There might not be anything to see yet. So we're open to the idea of site visits not always being upfront at the beginning of this application process, but perhaps at the midway point after we've awarded a grant, or maybe at the very end after the project's been completed, perhaps we come out and see something then. So, there's really no hard and fast rule as to where the site visit might be. It's kind of what makes the most sense for each of the projects. There's not like a one size fits all answer to this. So someone may reach out to you somewhere between after when the application is submitted and when we make our final decisions to come out and talk to you or to do a Zoom with you or not. So don't read too much into if you didn't get invited for a site visit, we might choose to do it later on. And again, in a conversation and a relationship with you, or maybe we just don't need one. Maybe our relationship is deep enough that we know your work. Again, the point is just don't read too much into if you don't get a site visit, that doesn't mean you're not getting a grant. It just means that may not be the best way to deepen this relationship. And then the final decisions will be made and you'll be notified one way or the other, whether you get a grant or not, through Foundant. And so again, everything that we'll do will come through Foundant. Well, I guess except for the site visit notifications, which will likely come through email, and those usually come through Lindy. Okay. We're getting close to the end of my talking, and then I promise I'll leave open time for questions. So these are the dates that you need to know. The LOI, the letters of inquiry, are going to be opening on February 2nd, and those will be open for about a month until March 6th. Then my group gets together, my committee gets together, and we decide who we want to invite from those LOIs to complete a full application. That meeting happens on March 13th, so somewhere in that week, it takes us a few days to get all our ducks in a row, but somewhere in that week, you'll hear from us about whether you've been invited for an application or not. So then from that point till April 17th, you'll have to complete the application. And then we sit down again as a committee to make final decisions on May 6th. And then you would hear sometime in that week of May 6th, you would hear about your grant award. And then, so about a year after, sometime in the spring of 2027, so probably sometime in May, we will receive from you a final post-grant report on how the project went. And again, if it makes sense for a site visit to happen at that point, it might. If it makes sense for a site visit to happen at the midpoint, between when you get your grant and when the grant is over, maybe we'll do that. So that conversation will be ongoing with you. And I think we're at the question section. So before I turn off these slides, we'll come to questions in a second. I want to make sure you have this contact information, and then we'll go back and I'll turn these off and we can actually look at each other face to face. So my email is here, Christina@lumpkinfoundation.org. That's my phone number at work. And our website is listed there as well. So if you have questions between now and when you're working on your LOI, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. And again, that's all on the website too. Let me stop sharing though, so that I can see your faces. And then we can, if you have any questions, we can get to those. Okay, I see one in the chat. Okay, Megan is asking about how we define rural development, if it looks more like than just agriculture and looks at other elements of rural community quality of life. That's a great question. I think it probably depends on the project. Um, rural people and rural places, I think, are unique, and so not all of it hinges on agriculture. If there is some aspect of mental health or, health and wellness, healthy eating, getting outdoors, just general wellness, that usually helps. So it doesn't always have to be agriculture focused. But Megan, if that doesn't answer your question and you want to like drill down on something specific, feel free to send me an email and I can respond by email if that helps. Okay, any other questions? Give you all time to process. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any more questions. Again, if you think of something later and you're like, oh no, I need to ask this question because it's really important that my LOI be as strong as possible, do reach out to me by email. Again, I'll do my best to answer your question by email. Um, Again, use the website, use the grantee database, use all that information that's available to you to put forth your strongest LOI possible. Okay, I do see a question here. So if you aspire to core status, should we talk about it in the LOI or proposal? So if you are a grantee that has been working with us for several years already, we likely are already kind of thinking through that conversation. If you're a new organization to us, there wouldn't be need for that conversation until we've had at least like 3 years worth of a relationship. So I hope that answered your question. But yeah, usually we are already kind of in the process of knowing who might be in the queue or might be eligible for core funding. So if you are completely new to us, that would not be the case just yet. All right. Are 501(c)(3)s the only eligible entities? We work with school and government and 501(c)(3). So if you're a unit of local government, you are eligible. So, yay. Any other questions? Okay, again, anytime you have a specific question, do feel free to reach out and email me, or if it's a technical question about Founded, email Lindy, and she will be right on top of it and help you. Otherwise, I thank you for